Hi everyone, it's Katie from Chords Records. Welcome to my channel. War Child's new charity album Help 2 is out, and it is up there with my favourite album of the year. I cannot believe this album. I was really looking forward to it because I knew what had gone into it, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. I'm going to go into this album and talk through the tracks. It's a double album. It's absolutely an stunningly produced album. And don't let the fact it's a compilation put you off, because I'm going to tell you why. So first, let's go back a step. What is Help and what is War Child? War Child is a charity out of the UK that started like 30 odd years ago to help children in war-torn areas. And 30 years ago, they put out Help, the original Help album, with a bunch of famous British and Irish artists at the time, including Oasis, Sinead O'Connor, Blur. I think Blur was on it. And it was, at the time, I think, to help the former Yugoslavia and children of that civil war. And 30 years later, James Ford, the producer, has been brought into the War Child fold to produce this second album to help kids in war-torn areas, and the people he's brought onto this album. And it's really special. It's not just your average charity album. It's not your average compilation album, that's for sure. And as I said, it's up there, and it probably is my favourite album of the year so far. So we're in 2026. It's the end of March, and it's just stunning. So who did he bring on? First of all, I'll take you through the actual release of the album. All the proceeds obviously go to War Child. It's produced by War Child. There's the logo. And look at this absolutely gorgeous kind of double image with artwork by Jonathan Glazer, and inside, and apparently you can go online, or I know you can go online and find out more about the artists. The actual shrink wrap had a kind of a see-through, I'll see if I can put it up against the album so you can see it, a see-through hype with a list of the artists on the album. So who are the artists? Everyone from, oh my goodness, so many: Arctic Monkeys, Arooj Aftab, Bat for Lashes, Beabadoobee, Beth Gibbons, Big Thief, Cameron Winter, the list goes on. He got them all, most of them, into a studio for 1 week only in November 2025 at Abbey Road Studios, the iconic studio. I think it was Studio 2. And it was actually over 2 weeks, brought them in and produced this album. He'd been planning it for a long time. Unfortunately, James Ford has been fighting leukemia. And through the production of this, he was actually having to literally phone it in from his hospital bed during infusions. So he hasn't been healthy, but bravo, James Ford, because this album is an absolute masterpiece. I particularly want to call out I'll talk about the track listing in a minute, but the sequencing on an album like this, a compilation. The sequencing of the music is so important, because you've got a bunch of different artists coming together, different voices, different sounds, different musical genres, different types of music. And it could be jarring. The common theme, of course, is quite political, being that it's War Child. There's a couple of sort of love songs on here, which is absolutely fine. There's quite a few political songs. There's a few cover versions. So let me start with track 1, Arctic Monkeys. And they quite rightly open with a track called Opening Nights. Of course, Arctic Monkeys, English rock band, founded over 20 years ago, were the first kind of band that came through that social media. They were discovered on, on social media, sort of YouTube, and been around forever. And James Ford has worked with them. And it's sort of the opening track is kind of the perfect opening track. It sets the tone for the album, which is a very British album. The only criticism I'd have of the album, if I were to have one, and it's very minor, is that it's probably leaning into the past a lot. So there's quite a few clearly friends and connections of the producer bringing in. So there's people from Arctic Monkeys, people from Blur, Oasis contributes a track, Portishead musicians, so a bunch of that kind of old school British music and Irish music, but there are some modern musicians as well. So the second song, which is amazing, and it was one of the singles released, it's Damon Albarn from Blur and Gorillaz, Grian Chatten from Fontaines DC, Kay Tempest. They are an amazing artist, poet, spoken word artist, and they all produce this incredible song called Flags, which includes a whole children's choir. And the people around them during the production of this song, the musicians at the Smiths, Johnny Marr, Black Country New Road contributed. Like, it's just a phenomenal song. And the clip itself, if you go online, the creative director, apparently there's a documentary being made, and the creative director hired children as the filmmakers. They're all walking around with kind of these old school tapes, film cameras, filming, and it's all through the eyes of children, which is so apt for this album. So that's an amazing track and one of the highlights. It is kind of, the producer has called it the centerpiece of this album, and it really is kind of the spiritual center of the album, even though it's only the second track and it's a four-sided album. It really holds down, this is what the album's all about. Then the following tracks on side A include Black Country New Road with a song called Strangers, another new song. All these songs have never been heard before. They're either recorded at Abbey Road during that week, they're either recorded at a different studio and contributed, or something out of their old catalogue that was never released. So that it's all very intentional, putting the music on this album. So the Black Country New Road is a new song, and it's the producer, James Ford, produced their last album, and we went to see them in concert last year, touring that album. And so we knew their music really well, but this song it's the two female vocalists harmonizing in kind of like this old folk song, almost that British, old school British folk, or even early American kind of soft rock. It's so beautiful, just a real treat, and a little bit more melodic and a bit more accessible than Black Country New Road really is. It's an absolute treat of a song. The next track, Last Dinner Party, Let's Do It Again. This is a really fun track. It's that sort of camp vaudevillian circus swinging sort of song, really fun, and it just finishes with this kind of crescendo of like a Jim Steinman or Meatloaf Bat Out of Hell type ending, or even it's sort of even like Patti Smith in a way. Really, really great. And so you're moving through this album. By this stage, I'm like going, this is possibly my favorite album. And then the final track on side one is Beth Gibbons from Portishead. Oh my goodness. She does a cover of the Velvet Underground song Sunday Morning, and it's just beautiful in my mind. It's just it's simple, the orchestration's quite simple, but it's almost like the perfect interpretation of that song. I mean, I'm a huge Portishead fan, huge Beth Gibbons fan. So for her to decide to kind of cover that song for this album, it's just such a treat. The whole album is just amazing. So that ends side one. And when side one ended, I was like convinced, this is it. This is my favourite album of the year. Then we get to side B. I should say at this point that the albums are, it's not polyline sleeves, it's just this kind of thin paper, which I don't blame them because they're saving money, they're raising money for War Child. You can buy this on Bandcamp, so if you're not a vinyl listener, you can buy it on Bandcamp. All proceeds go to War Child. So it's quite thin paper sleeve, which I'll be swapping out. And it's just, it's a bit kind of a bright pink, and both of them are exactly the same, and they've just got the artists listed. So then you open so it ends Sunday morning on side A, and you're thinking, wow. You flip over the record, and this is where the cadence is so beautiful, because you've kind of been seduced into this fantastic British sound. It's really well produced. You flip over the album, and the beautiful voice of Arooj Aftab, Middle Eastern female singer, she's just sublime, has joined forces with Beck. They've gone into Beck's studio, just the two of them, in late December last year. It was a last-minute entry for this album, and they do a cover of Lilac Wine. Oh my goodness, it's just sumptuous. And I mean, I love that song from, obviously the original with Nina Simone, but Jeff Buckley's version's beautiful on Grace, but this version for me stands up. It is just wonderful. And in the second chorus, Beck joins in with her voice, and the two of them sing the chorus, and it's just wonderful. And there's lots of sweeping strings, and there's nothing provocative about this version. It's a very obvious cover version of this song, but it's just beautifully produced, and it's up there with my favorite version of this song. I didn't think I'd ever be able to say that after the two that I know. So then it follows with King Cruel. I didn't know these guys. It's called the 343 Loop. It's just instrumental, and looking them up, they're I think they usually sing, but it's instrumental, and it's sort of it's talked about as this kind of interlude on the album. And then you move into Depeche Mode. Love British music, old school British music so much. British New Wave, is there anything better? And you know what they do? They do a cover. Of course, what are they going to do? They're going to do Buffy St. Marie, Universal Soldier, that early 60s political song, and they somehow turn it into a Depeche Mode political anthem. It is brilliant. It's full on Depeche Mode. They haven't changed in all their years. Full kind of fantastic vocals and that great electronic music. Very new wave. It sounds like Depeche Mode, and that song is obviously such a classic from Donovan. Donovan sang it. I think somebody else did as well. Who was it? Glenn Campbell, maybe? Famous song, but I know the Donovan one the best, and they just absolutely knock it out of the park. And then the next track is Ezra Collective, which is this sort of this jazz quintet, but very modern electronic jazz quintet. And they team up with Green Tea Peng, who do a song called Helicopters, new song, and it's got this has kind of got a real reggae dubbiness to it. And so you've come out of this electronic Depeche Mode, and then you're moving into this, and you honestly feel like you're swimming in the pool of British music. Then, unfortunately, towards the end of this side B, we're running into probably, I think, potentially the weakest part of the album. There's a song by Arlo Parks, and it does not belong on this album. I think it was a phone-in. it's an old song that didn't work on an album, and I think for a reason. Yeah, I don't think she belongs on this album, or this song, I should say, doesn't belong on this album. The song's called Nothing I Could Hide. Then the next two songs, English Teacher and Graham Coxon, and they sing this song called Parasite. And obviously Graham Coxon from Blur, and the voice of what's her name, Lily someone from English Teacher is Lily Fontaine's. Her voice is absolutely really strong on this, and her jazz chops kind of come through, and sometimes I wouldn't have thought you would hear those kind of beautiful jazzy notes from English Teacher, the band, but her voice is just beautiful on this song, and that is a high note. And then you get Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo singing Say Yes, and how do you pronounce that? Beabadoobie, who I've also seen live, I just can't pronounce her name, with a song called Say Yes, but she does a cover of Elliott Smith, and it is really quite lovely. So I'm incorrect in saying it kind of falls into a weak part of the album. Maybe it's just Arlo Parks that I didn't like, because that Elliott Smith cover is really great. And it's lovely to hear her sing something that's not her pop sensibilities. And this is where they have chosen newer British artists, which I think are great, and particularly this kind of particularly with her, this new crop of singer-songwriters that are coming out all over the place, that are dominating the charts in the last 5 to 10 years, which I love. I just didn't think there was enough of it on the compilation. Okay, we flip to side C. Same packaging, and this is where they go, you know what, maybe we should introduce some non-British artists. So we've had full British and Irish kind of artistic flooding in the first album. The side C starts with Big Thief and a song called Relive Ready. And I understood from a couple of the interviews that James Ford wanted to include some non-British artists, and big fan of Big Thief, who isn't, and they supplied this song, and they worked closely with them to kind of get the right song. I don't think it was recorded at Abbey Road, but it really, really works with the sequencing. And that is followed by an absolutely stunning Fontaine's DC track. And so if I haven't convinced you to buy it yet, you need to move on, because honestly, if all these artists don't interest you, you're not going to like the album. But it's just like a who's who of great musicians and music. So the Fontaine's DC, Black Boys on Mopeds, if you don't know that song, a famous, haunting, beautiful Sinead O'Connor song. Sinead O'Connor was obviously on the first Help album 30 years ago, as I mentioned. So a really lovely full circle tribute that they, an Irish band, Fontaine's DC, cover Black Boys on Mopeds, which is just a heartbreaking song and a very political song. It's probably my second favourite song on the album. Really beautiful. Except for the next song, which probably ties for first or second, Cameron Winter. I mean, he has gone on to be so huge in the last 12 to 18 months, with everything from Geese to his solo record Geese Getting Killed, and his solo record, Heavy Metal. We saw Cameron Winter at the Sydney Opera House, and it was probably the best concert of last year. Really mesmerizing artist, and he wrote this song called Warning. And James Ford had a relationship with Geese because he'd worked on their album previous to getting killed, and had approached Cameron Winter about contributing to this album before getting killed went absolute ballistic. And he was worried that Cameron Winter wouldn't, was too big to be able to get on the album. And he still kind of turned up, and it's classic Cameron Winter in that he's always surprising you. And it's just this kind of string spiccato, kind of the banging of the strings, this rhythmic pulsating violins with almost spoken word Cameron Winter gorgeous voice just over the top of it for the entire time, and you never quite know where the verse or the chorus is. And it's hypnotic, and the actual lyrics, it's a song to himself. I'm pretty sure it's a poignant song talking to himself, just warning him about himself. Do yourself a favor and read the lyrics of that song. And then there's a song we move to an artist called Young Fathers, Don't Fight the Young. The band Young Fathers singing Don't Fight the Young. And they're a Scottish progressive hip-hop band, although this song probably is less hip-hop and more just kind of soul or punk rock even in its sound. Good, not great in my mind. We move into classic pulp with a song called Begging the Change. And it was recorded at Abbey Road Studios. They brought it into Abbey Road Studios half done. I think it was an existing pulp song from bits and pieces, and then they put some more onto it. I'm not a huge pulp fan, but it belongs on the album. And then Sampha with a song called Naboo, and that's special because our cat is called Naboo, so that's quite fun. And this is kind of this cruisy, vibey, soulful song which ends side C. And Sampha is a hip-hop artist, worked with everyone from Kendrick Lamar to Drake to Frank Ocean, Florence and the Machine, lots of people, Alicia Keys. And so it has a lot of chops, and it's a great song to finish side C. And then we get into the last side, and it's sort of where they've put some of them are very forward political. They've kind of gone, the sequencing has been this beautiful British kind of swampy sounds, just beautiful immersion in what it means to be sort of that in the British and Irish scene. And then side D, you flip it, side D, and it opens with this acoustic song by Wet Leg. This random kind of Wet Leg, obviously they've had 2 albums. Their second album last year was amazing. First album, great. We've seen them live for their first album. And the song they've got on this compilation is from their first album, but it was never put on there. It was left over. And it's a acoustic song called Obvious, and it's really like you've never heard Wet Leg before, and they're great musicians. And so just a really lovely way to start the final side. And then you move into a band called Foals with a song which is probably the most obvious song on here, When the War is Finally Done. It's a little bit too on the nose as far as it's not subtle in what it's talking about. Beautiful vocals, and very quite ballady. And then Bat for Lashes, Carried My Girl, Natasha Khan, again a little bit obvious, a little bit saccharine, if you like. So we're getting into this kind of, okay, this is what we're here for, just to remind everyone about kids in war-torn countries. The final 3 songs, final 2 songs really, it ends on a bang. The first song that I'm going to talk about, which is the second to last song, is by Anna Calvi, Ellie Roswell, and Nilufer Yanya and Dove Ellis. So 4 contributing artists. Ellie Roswell, obviously from Wolfvallas, who are kind of amazing British rock band, sort of making sort of moves in the British rock scene or alt rock scene, and Dove Ellis, he's an Irish singer, folk singer, and they come together on this song called Sunday Light, and it's full of harmonies. It's quite beautiful, but the main vocal is Anna Calvi. And then it finishes with a non-British artist. And this was the surprise for me, because I'm a massive, huge fan of this young artist called Olivia Rodrigo, who is very, very talented. She's the real deal. And she headlined Glastonbury, I think it was last year or the year before, put out her double album live at Glastonbury. She understands music. She comes from old school traditions. Her single from The Cure, with The Cure, Friday I'm in Love, which came out, really fantastic. And she does a cover of the American band Magnetic Field, so the Stephen Merritt song called The Book of Love. And it's just this beautiful old-timey sort of female 60s female kind of ballad song interpretation of that Magnetic Field song, and it's just gorgeous. And I just love the fact that Olivia Rodrigo, and she came over to Britain, she went into Abbey Road Studios, turned up, recorded take after take, perfect takes. This was one of the songs where, unfortunately, the producer had to kind of phone in from his infusion session undergoing leukemia treatment. But just really fantastic way to finish the album. But wait, there's more. If that wasn't enough, the vinyl album comes with a strange little 7-inch, and it's a live version of Acquiescence by Oasis, and live at Wembley Stadium September 28th 2025, from their great Oasis comeback tour. And this was the B-side of one of their first singles back 30 years ago. And of course, Oasis being on the first album, it's just a really nice touch that they've returned on the second album. But it's an awful recording. Like I had turned this album. The pressing is beautiful. Like from a vinyl perspective, I played it on my vintage Philips 212, which I don't know if you can see that there, or through my Sansui amplifier on these big speakers here. And it was absolutely beautiful, sounded beautiful. Put this on and it fatigued my ears. I had to turn it right down. It was noisy and just awful, and I didn't enjoy it. Thank God it's only one side, but a nice little touch, I guess, for the album. So that's it. That's that deep dive into Help 2. Congratulations, James Ford and the entire team at War Child. This album is just brilliant. Thank you for putting it together, and I urge you all to don't stream it, buy it somehow, buy it digitally on Bandcamp, buy the vinyl and contribute. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.